Emma's shocking story, the 60-year-old woman's incredible secret. Asterisk, what would you do if your own children told you you're old? You don't understand money matters while you were actually the one controlling their lives. What if your own kids wanted to send you to a nursing home while you were secretly their boss? What you're about to hear will shock you. Are you ready? Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the like button. My name is Emma Richardson. I'm 60 years old and I live in my modest home in Portland, Oregon. I'm about to tell you the incredible story of how my children saw me as an ordinary elderly woman, living on her retirement pension while I was secretly the owner of an $85 million fortune and controlling their lives in ways they never knew. After my husband Robert passed away 3 years ago, my 28-year-old son Jake and 31-year-old daughter Sarah began constantly monitoring me. Jake works at a marketing company, Sarah at an advertising agency. Both are middle-income earners who constantly struggle with money, living paycheck to paycheck despite their decent salaries. The condescending comments started almost immediately. After Robert's funeral, "Mom, be careful with your retirement pension. Inflation is very high," they would warn me weekly. "At your age, investments are risky. Keep your money in a simple savings account." Jake would lecture me as if I were a child. "You don't understand real estate. You'll get scammed," Sarah would add, shaking her head with pity. Their patronizing attitude intensified over time. Sarah came last month with a thick folder, saying, "Mom, I prepared a simple budget chart for you. Money management gets difficult at your age." The chart was color-coded and simplified, as if I couldn't handle basic mathematics after 35 years of teaching high school students. Jake would constantly say, "Mom, don't use online banking. It's not safe. We'll handle your affairs." He spoke to me the same way he spoke to his 8-year-old daughter. The truth is, after Robert died, I fell into a huge void that seemed impossible to escape. After 35 years of teaching mathematics and economics at Lincoln High School, I had retired just 2 years before his death and didn't know what to do at home. My days were spent watching daytime television shows, tending to my small garden, and staring at the walls of our house that suddenly felt too big and too quiet. My children would come weekly to check on me, treating these visits like welfare checks rather than family time. They would interfere with my grocery shopping, examining my receipts and constantly warning me, "Don't spend so much at your age." They treated me as if I were a small child who couldn't be trusted with money, despite the fact that I had managed our household budget for decades. While Robert focused on his engineering career, the humiliations were small but constant, each one chipping away at my dignity. Jake examined my shopping cart last month, pulling out items and saying, "Mom, you don't need this much meat. You're alone. It'll go to waste." He returned the steaks to the butcher with an apologetic smile, as if I were an embarrassing relative he had to manage. Sarah would arrive unannounced to check my electricity bills, saying, "Mom, you're heating too much. You need to save money. Your pension won't last forever." They even began monitoring my social activities. When I mentioned joining a book club, Sarah frowned and said, "Mom, be careful about membership fees. Those clubs can be expensive." when I wanted to take a watercolor painting class at the community center, Jake suggested I stick to free activities, like walking in the park. The most painful moment happened last Christmas dinner at Jake's house. His 8-year-old daughter Sophie looked at me with innocent curiosity and said, "Grandma, you're very old. Do you just make cookies and sleep all day?" Jake laughed heartily without scolding her, as if her words were amusing rather than hurtful. Sarah giggled and added, "That's what grandmas do, honey. They rest and enjoy their retirement." I experienced these small humiliations daily, even outside my family. At banks, young tellers would question my withdrawals, asking with exaggerated patience, "Are you sure you want to withdraw such a large amount, Mrs. Richardson? Maybe you should discuss this with your children first." Store clerks would speak to me slowly and loudly, as if age had made me deaf and simple. Minded. The breaking point came when I overheard Jake and Sarah discussing my future on the phone. "She's getting forgetful," Jake said, though I had never forgotten anything important. "We need to start thinking about her long-term care," Sarah replied. "Maybe it's time to consider assisted living." Until 6 months later, when I discovered something in Robert's old papers that would completely change my life and turn the tables on everyone who had underestimated me. While cleaning out Robert's study, a room I had avoided since his death, I found a locked drawer I had never noticed before. Inside were documents that revealed a side of my husband I had never known. Robert had detailed handwritten notes titled Portland Development Analysis 1995 to 2020. Page after page showed how he had recorded year by year how neighborhoods changed, analyzed municipal decisions' effects on real estate values, and studied demographic changes for investment opportunities. Robert had been a closet real estate analyst, documenting patterns and trends with the precision of a scientist. His notes revealed that he had been quietly preparing for our retirement by studying the market, though he died before he could implement his strategies. As I read his research, I realized he had handed me a roadmap to financial independence. With my 35 years of teaching experience, I knew how to do detailed research and analysis. The same skills I had used to break down complex mathematical concepts for teenagers could be applied to the real estate market. I decided to honor Robert's memory by implementing his strategies, starting with the analytical abilities I had honed in the classroom. I began my education by attending city council meetings every Tuesday evening, sitting quietly in the back row while officials discussed zoning changes, infrastructure improvements, and development projects. Nobody suspected that a 60-year-old widowed woman was there for investment intelligence rather than civic duty. I learned valuable information about which areas would get new metro stops, where parks would be renovated, and how school district changes would affect property values. I spent months studying Portland's development patterns, creating detailed spreadsheets that would have impressed my former students. I researched demographic trends, analyzed traffic patterns, and studied the correlation between public investments and property appreciation. Every piece of information became part of my master plan. I took my first step at the end of 2022 using $85,000 from Robert's life insurance to buy an old laundromat on Southeast Division Street. The building was run down and the neighborhood was transitioning. But my research indicated it was about to boom. 3 months later, the city declared that area a creative arts district with tax incentives for artists and entrepreneurs. Almost overnight, the building's value rose to $220,000. I renovated it into modern office spaces and rented them for $2,800 monthly to young professionals and creative freelancers. This success gave me confidence to continue. For my second investment, I bought an old auto repair shop in Alberta Arts District for $120,000, converting it to artist studios and galleries. The monthly rental income totaled $5,200 from 5 different tenants, and the building's value increased to $280. Within 8 months. My third investment was a warehouse near Burnside Bridge for $380,000, which I converted to luxury loft apartments. The location was perfect for young professionals who wanted to live downtown, and I earned $8,800 monthly from just 4 units. Each success built my confidence and my capital. The ironic twist that made me smile every month was that Jake's marketing company rented space in my Alberta building for $3,500 monthly, and Sarah's advertising agency rented offices in my Burnside building for $4,200 monthly. They constantly complained about their greedy landlord and rising rent costs, never imagining they were paying their own mother. During family dinners, they would vent about their rental expenses while I nodded sympathetically, hiding my amusement. In 2023, feeling more confident, I made my biggest move yet, buying an old bowling alley on Foster Road for $420,000. The neighborhood was gentrifying rapidly, and I converted the space into a trendy event venue and wedding hall. The monthly bookings generated $12,000 in revenue, and weekend weddings often brought in $5,000 per event. My ultimate investment was the old Oregonian newspaper building downtown for $1.8 million. It was a historic building with great bones, and I converted it to modern office space with exposed brick and industrial details that tech companies loved. The monthly rental income reached $45,000 from various tenants, including a startup incubator and several law firms. But I didn't stop at real estate. Using my growing wealth, I started buying shares in the holding companies that owned Jake and Sarah's employers. Through careful research and strategic investments, I became a significant shareholder in their companies, making me their indirect boss without them knowing it. The irony was delicious. My children, who thought I didn't understand business, were actually working for me. Meanwhile, they continued their weekly lectures about my retirement pension management while I earned $127,000 monthly from rentals alone, not counting my stock dividends and property appreciation. The comedy of errors continued for months. Jake would call me saying, "Mom, I got a raise. The company is doing so well." I would congratulate him warmly, not mentioning that I had voted in favor of his promotion during the board meeting. Sarah would complain, "Our office rent went up again." But at least they improved the lighting and renovated the bathrooms. I had personally overseen those improvements until last week, when everything exploded in the most dramatic confrontation of my life. Jake and Sarah came to my house on a Saturday morning, both carrying folders and tablets, clearly planning something serious. Their expressions were grave, like, doctor's about to deliver bad news to a patient. Mom, sit down. We need to have a serious talk, Sarah said in her most patronizing voice, guiding me to my own living room chair as if I were fragile. They had researched assisted living facilities with the thoroughness of a military operation. They presented glossy brochures for Sunset Manor Assisted Living, costing $4,500 monthly. It's perfect for people your age, Jake said, spreading the materials across my coffee table. Bingo nights, handicraft workshops, gardening club. You'll make friends with people who understand what you're going through. Sarah showed photos on her tablet with the enthusiasm of a travel agent. Look at these beautiful rooms, Mom. 24-hour security, doctor visits weekly, medication management. You won't have to worry about anything. Mom, living alone at your age is risky, Jake said with fake concern that made my skin crawl. Remember what happened to neighbor Mary? She fell and lay there for 3 hours because no one heard her call for help. We can't let that happen to you. They had calculated everything with spreadsheet precision. The house is worth $850,000 at 4% interest in conservative investments. That's $34. Zero annually plus your $2,800 monthly pension equals $5,633. Monthly income. Assisted living costs $4,500, leaving $1,133 for pocket money and personal expenses. Sarah produced a power of attorney document from her briefcase like a lawyer presenting evidence. We'll manage your financial affairs so you don't have to stress about bills and investments. No more worrying about money, we'll handle everything. How thoughtful of you both, I said with an irony that completely escaped them. That's when my patience finally ran out. The months of condescension, the assumptions about my capabilities, the planning of my future without consulting me, it all crystallized into a moment of perfect clarity. Okay, my dear children, I said calmly, standing up with a smile they had never seen before. Before we discuss my future, I want to show you a few things about my present. I walked to my file cabinet and withdrew a thick folder I had been preparing for this exact moment. This is my Chase Bank checking account statement, I said, placing the document on the coffee table. Current balance, $12.3 million. Sarah's hand trembled as she picked up the paper, her eyes scanning the numbers repeatedly. Mom, how many zeros are there? 9 zeros, sweetheart, I said calmly, watching her face turn pale. Jake grabbed the paper from her shaking hands. This is impossible. You're a retired teacher. Teachers don't have millions. This is my Morgan Stanley investment portfolio. I showed them another thick document. Current value, $45.2 million in carefully selected stocks and bonds. Sarah's mouth fell open and stayed that way. $45 million. Mom, this can't be real. This is my real estate portfolio. I opened the thickest file of all, 47 properties around Portland. From apartment buildings to commercial spaces, total assessed value, $28 million. Jake collapsed into his chair like a deflated balloon. This can't be real. Where did all this come from? This is my monthly rental income report. I showed them a spreadsheet that would have made their employers proud. I collected $127,000 just this month from my various properties. Sarah started pacing around my living room like a caged animal. This can't be happening. This can't be happening, Jake. Do you want to know something interesting? I own the building where your marketing company rents office space. You personally pay me $8.00 monthly in rent. Jake's color drained completely. You're our landlord. The landlord we complain about. Sarah, I also own your advertising agency's building. You pay me $6,500 monthly rent. Remember last month when you called me to complain about the greedy landlord who raised your rent? That was me. Sarah literally collapsed to the floor, sitting there in shock. This is a nightmare. This can't be happening. There's more, much more. I'm also a major shareholder in the holding companies that own both your employers. In a very real sense, you both work for me. Jake had to lean against the wall to keep from falling. What does this mean? It means I'm your indirect boss, Jake. That 15% raise you got last month, I voted in favor of it during the shareholders meeting. Sarah was now lying on my carpet, staring at the ceiling. How did we not know any of this? Because you put me in the helpless elderly mom category and assumed I couldn't possibly be successful or intelligent enough to build wealth. Jake started crying real tears. Mom, we treated you so badly. We talked to you like you were a child. Yes, you did. While I was earning $127,000 monthly. You were lecturing me about being careful with my $2,800 pension. That day, they left my house completely shattered, their worldview destroyed, their assumptions about age and capability crushed under the weight of reality. The following days were chaos in both their lives. Sarah called me crying at 2 a.m., saying, I haven't slept for 3 days. I keep thinking about how we treated you. Jake's wife Lisa came to my house demanding to know what had happened to her husband, who was walking around their house in a daze. I explained everything to her, and she reacted much more maturely than her husband, saying they needed to apologize immediately and completely change their attitude. On the 6th day after the revelation, they came to my house together, looking like they hadn't slept or eaten properly since our confrontation. Mom, how could we have treated you like this? Jake asked, his voice broken with genuine remorse. Because you had age prejudice, my dear son. You thought people my age couldn't earn money, understand technology, or be successful in business. What happens now? Sarah asked tremblingly, afraid of the answer. Now you'll show me the respect I deserve. I'm not just your mother anymore. I'm Emma Richardson, owner of an $85 million portfolio and a successful businesswoman. Everything changed from that day forward. They still call me Mom, but with complete respect and often with awe. Last month, Sarah asked nervously, Mom, could you possibly suggest a good investment opportunity? Jake said humbly, could I learn your strategies? I want to understand how you built all this. First, learn to save money and live below your means. Then we can talk about investment. I told Sarah, you can start learning my strategies, but it will take you about 20 years to master what I've learned. I told Jake. The most beautiful moment came when Sarah's 3-year-old daughter Emma asked me during a family dinner, Grandma, are you a superhero? Yes, sweetheart. My superpower is being invisible. I look like an ordinary elderly woman, but I'm actually a very successful businesswoman. Now my children see me as a financial advisor, real estate expert, and most importantly, a mother who deserves respect and admiration. They ask for my opinions instead of patronizing me, and they listen carefully to my advice. Jake recently said with genuine admiration, "Mom, you're my role model. I want to be like you when I grow up," Sarah confessed. Tearfully, "We were so incredibly stupid. You're much more successful than both of us combined. But most importantly, they listen to me now and don't look at me with elderly and helpless prejudice." So, have you ever discovered that your loved ones underestimated your abilities? Did this story change your perspective on elderly people and parents? Because sometimes the greatest wealth lies hidden in talents and capabilities that no one expects to find in someone they've labeled as just an old person.